Hey there, Nick Royer here, and I want to talk to you about home values. And depending on where you live, you may have noticed that the value of your home has risen substantially. Now, if you haven't noticed, because maybe your neighbors haven't told you about Zillow.com, that's Zillo.com, you can type in your home address and you'll see a pretty good estimate what your home is worth. Now, essentially what they're looking at is comparables in your area. It's not exact, but it does give you an idea. Now, here in Central Florida, prices have soared dramatically. Just in the last 3.5 years, when I was looking at Zillow, that's what we're seeing. And according to new neighbors who have sold, it's not unusual to see houses almost doubling in price. Now, I got to tell you something. 3.5 years ago, I thought houses were way overpriced. And this is now blowing my mind. Now, I wouldn't buy the house that I live in for what they say it's worth. But other people, well, they will. And it sounds like it might be a good thing, but the question is it really a good thing? So I was talking to somebody the other day who was expressing concern about exactly what this is, this whole real estate thing. And even though she'd lived here for quite some time and was really making quite a profit on her current home, she's a little upset because she's at a point in her life where she'd really like to go down to a different home that has maybe more living space on that main floor, like a ranch, instead of a 2-story. So her biggest concern is if she sells her house, she admits she's going to be making a killing, but then she's going to have to pay an even higher amount for the home she wants to live in. She'll be in essence downsizing in the size of the house, but with current prices, she's actually spending more to get into a new, smaller house. So she told me, she said, well, Nick, I think this is a bubble. I think it's going to burst. So I told her, let's think about that for a second. First of all, is it really a bubble? I mean, what is a bubble when it comes to finances? And the media wants to tell you, they want you to believe that everything that goes up must fall. And I'm here to tell you that, like many things you hear on TV, that's not 100%. That's not necessarily true. News is what determines values. So good news, values rise. Bad news, values go down. And we see it all the time in stocks. There's nothing to say that because the housing market or the stock market is going up, that it's got to go down. So if demand for homes continues to grow, the value would naturally go up too. But what if demand were to stop? Well, if demand stops, chances are prices would just level off, though what I see is this almost parabolic move that some of these housing prices have gone through. A lot of the values that we're seeing out there could really have been price dislocations that could revert to the actual value. We don't know. We'll see that in the weeks and months to come. But it's only when demand goes away and goes maybe way down to the point where sellers far outnumber buyers that we have an issue. Look back at 2008, major housing crisis in 2008. Values plummeted, and a lot of people wonder why that happened, because nobody could get a mortgage to buy one. Now, was that predictable? Not really. I mean, certainly if we look at Fannie Mae, if we look at Freddie Mac, there was mismanagement there. That was a problem for a long time, but it caught a lot of people off guard. Look at what's happened since 2008. The value of my home in 2007 plummeted by the time we got into 2008. It had dropped in value by, I think, maybe 20 to 25% or something crazy like that. Though, when I think about that and I go back in time, interesting enough, that really wasn't a problem at all. Why? Well, because it didn't really affect my lifestyle at all. I mean, my mortgage payment was still the same. My property taxes actually went down once I appealed to them because the market value had gone down. I just continued to pay my mortgage. And eventually what happened is the price of the home was considerably higher than when I bought it by the time I actually sold it. So in this case, where this lady is worried about buying a new home and maybe being subjected to a pricing bubble, well, first of all, number one, this may not be a bubble. And number two, what happens if the value of her home goes down? Probably nothing. She's living there, so if the value goes down, it's not like she's selling it. But a big concern going back to supply and demand is with the Fed. So if you've watched anything on TV, you're seeing how the Fed is increasing interest rates. That's affecting mortgage rates because mortgage rates are going up again, and that's likely going to cool things down in the world of real estate. So in fact, a few days ago, I read an article that said that the median housing prices in Orlando had dropped for the first time in 6 months. Now, is this a long-term trend? Who knows? Now, of course, if you're trying to buy a house, live in it for a few years, and then sell it and move on to do something like, just do that same thing again, now might not be a good time to do something like that. A lot of the easy growth has probably occurred, and the big gains in the future may not be like they have been over the last few years. Another thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that you might be able to get a great price for your house, but then you have to pay more to get into something comparable, and that's not the best scenario. So I'm not saying prices can't fall, but what we do have is a much higher demand in here in Florida than any other area in the country, it seems. People are moving here from California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois. These are high tax states, and those people are coming down here. So that's driving the prices in this area up, and you can just drive around on the streets and you'll see all the construction that's happening. Now this could go on for a little while longer, especially when you consider that the population, and as people are retiring, the last of the baby boomers does not retire or does not turn 65 for another 7 years. So there's a lot more of this going forward. The good news is that if you own a house, if you have no debt on the house, be glad. The value has gone up. Your net worth has risen. But if it's gone down, or if it does go down in the future, it's probably not going to affect you that much. I mean, if you want to sell it now and buy something else, my suggestion is just make sure those numbers work. Make sure it's not putting you back in debt, because the last thing that people need is to go from being debt-free to being older, retired, and getting back into debt with higher payments that need to go out month after month, and higher expenses at a time when we have skyrocketing inflation and we have higher costs. So again, make sure the math works, and that's what we're here for. If you need some help running some scenarios to make sure that the math does work. So I hope that helps. But until next time, don't forget you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of great information there. You can go to onthemoneyshow.com for a bunch of information about almost 100 podcasts that you can tune into. You can go to our website, group10financial.com, for a lot of high-level content that you can download for free right there. So don't forget to check out those resources, and until next time, we'll see you then, and take care until next time. Bye now.